A show based on the facts, honesty, the man, the myth, the legend. ChristiTutionalist, Joseph M. Leonard.
Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with thelibertybeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's L-E-N-A-R-D. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Kevin McGary, not to be confused with a McMeal at the McDonald's. My audience knows I can never pass on the lame front. Puns, yeah. Welcome to the show, Kevin. First, let's start with the nitty-gritty on who you are, you're born, raised, and all that kind of good stuff.
Good. Yeah. So I was born in the 1960s and the Hunters Point projects in San Francisco. And so if anybody knows about Hunters Point in the 1960s, it was where the Black Panther Party had their headquarters, right? So I was born there, inner city upbringing. So I was a hoodlum and did, all the basic things that your inner city, Black youth would do. So I was in that kind of a realm. Went to a public school there. Because my father came home every night, I stayed in school and got good grades. Now, even though he was a virulent alcoholic and a violent one, still I stayed. Because my mama used to say, "Look, if you don't bring home those grades, I'm gonna stick your drunk daddy on you, and he'll take care of it." So I came home, I got good grades, and stayed in school. At the end of my high school, because I had good grades, I decided, well, I'll go to college. I didn't really have a map for doing that, but I was like, okay, well, I'll just go to college. I went to San Jose State, I received a sociology degree. Okay. So I got a sociology degree. So I'm steeped in abject poverty, urban living, Marxism by way of the sociology degree and everything else. So I get it all. I mean, this is kind of full circle. So I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I wasn't, encouraged to become conservative or Republican. I wasn't encouraged to think I've been through it. I see it. I got it. So when I met the love of my life, my wife of 37 years now, we decided we want to live strictly biblically. What that meant for us is to put everything, every domain of life at the cross, right? Overlay it with the kingdom ideology, right? So when we did that, we took a look at how we were voting and it didn't match up. We couldn't make it fit. It was like, and so the reality was we said, no, we got to do something differently here because this is not working. And so from Reagan's second term forward, we've been voting conservatively and on that side. Now, people would say, well, you were just a diehard Republican. No, I'm not. I'm not ideologically diehard anything other than a Godlican or a Christocrat. I'm a diehard ideology of the kingdom. That's what it is. So no one came to us and said, look, you need to be a Republican. No one preached to us about being a conservative. The fact is we took a look at it and it didn't fit. So we're very practical, pragmatic, principled people. And for us, it was like, this makes no sense. Everything the Democrats stood for that we've been voting for all these years is actually harming, the Black community and communities that we care about. So why would we continue to vote that? It's harming our faith foundations. It's harming the Black community. That makes no sense. It's ridiculous. So we made that change. So fast forward then, after writing several books and all of that, I come up to the 2020, riots by way of BLM and Antifa. They're white supremacist brethren. And we realized that they were burning down Black and brown businesses and nobody balked. We realized that they were really tearing up the urban infrastructure and nobody balked. Instead, Black pastors put their placards on their first edifice of their church, and they encouraged their parishioners to go out and march with BLM. So we said, look, people are seriously sorrowful and grief-stricken about what they saw with George Floyd. Okay, I get it. But we need a righteous and faithful alternative. We can't have the body of Christ going out and participating with looting and rioting and all of this other stuff with BLM, crazy Marxist revolutionaries, their term. So we started Every Black Life Matters. Okay. So that means from the womb to adulthood to the tomb, right? So, but what it illuminates is all lives matter. Every life matters. Now, some people say, well, no, you said every Black life. Well, hold on. The reality is when Margaret Sanger started her abortuaries via Planned Parenthood, she says, we don't want the word to get out, but we want to utterly exterminate the Negro population. From that time, there's been Black genocide. So all we're saying is, look, if you're all lives matter person, every life matters, we agree with you. All lives matter. God's not a respecter of persons. Therefore, we should all stand together and stand against the targeting of Blacks for Black genocide, for extermination. Instead of Blacks being born at this rate and every other ethnicity is being born at this rate, shouldn't we all stand? Because we know we're all together. No race is better than the other. We should all stand and say, look, all lives matter. So we stand against Planned Parenthood and the abortuaries because we want to make sure that Blacks are not specifically targeted for extermination like Planned Parenthood started.
Yeah. My friend, I know Bruce Fleury. He's a Wham radio host. He's the author of The Negro Project, all about Margaret Sanger and that the extermination of the human weeds, as she called Negroes then. And I like you channeled me before I created the show. ChristiTutionalist, you said Christocrat, then you realized your voting wasn't matching what you were getting wasn't matching your principles, so you kind of became a Christican then, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. But I also got to say about your mother, I was like, she had her own version of I can't talk. Scared straight. She wasn't going to shit the cops on you. She was going to shit daddy on you.
My drunk daddy, yeah. No, at that time, he's a solid man, wonderful businessman in San Francisco with multiple apartment buildings and all that. He's done well for himself. But and they've been married 64 years, and they're a wonderful story together. But so that's the life story and backstory, and that's why we started Every Black Life Matters. And basically, we're just saying, look, every Black life matters too. TOO.
Exactly.
So let's stop targeting Blacks for extermination. Let's stop targeting Blacks for not giving us school choice, parental choice, basically handcuffing Black and brown communities to the public school system. Let's stop targeting Blacks to take the fathers out of the home. Let's stop targeting Blacks to, for brainwashing around Marxism and communism. Blacks are, hey, every Black life matters too. So can we the same way everybody else is being taught? Can we give an opportunity for life the same way everybody else is given life? Can we be encouraged to be fathers to our homes the same way everybody else is? That's what we're saying.
Right. Not every Black life matters, and only you're saying all lives matter. But indeed, ever since the Democrats with the KKK, ARTS, lost the Civil War, they wanted to find a new way to continue to control the Black population. As Candace Owens says, it's now just a new economic plantation. It's still a plantation. They still feel like they own the Black population. And unfortunately, like after the Civil War, the first Blacks elected to office were Republican because, of course, Abraham Lincoln and the abolitionists, yes, some abolitionist Democrats too, but mostly the Republican Party, which was founded on abolitionism. And Bruce Fleury, that I mentioned, also has a conservative Black co-host, the main host, Phil Stargell. It's called the Abolitionist Roundtable, 9 a.m. Saturdays on Wham Radio. If you can tune in whamradio.com, you can listen 9 o'clock Saturdays. The GOP was founded as an abolitionist party, and yes, indeed, certainly not all Democrats were against abolitionism. But I mean, people don't know that the first Black slave was held by a black free man.
Okay.
Anderson, I think it was his name, he actually went to court for his right to extend the slavery beyond the indentured service contract. But yes, it seems today's Democrats still have that slave plantation mentality.
Yeah.
Segregation, they're peddling segregation again. Black-only dorms, black-only graduations. That's not diversity, inclusion, and equity. We call it DIE, D-I-E, because it's about killing Western culture. I take it you agree with that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM is your conservative flamethrower. Weekdays, Steve Gruber starts things off at 6 a.m. Gruber gives his perspective on the issues of the day. At 9 a.m., Glenn Beck blazes the airwaves with his nationally syndicated program. From noon to 3, it's Dennis Prager. At 3 o'clock, it's Wham's own Tyrone X. On the Edge, Tyrone tells it exactly as he sees it. At 6, it's The Dana Show, your conservative alternative. At 8, don't miss Joe Pags. Weekends are filled with conservative talk as well. Fingers Malloy, Thomas LeDuc, The Abolitionists Roundtable, A Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick, Your American Heritage with Ed Bondarenka, Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, and Dick Kupke's Trigger Talk. You can even get links to Wham podcasts from Dave, Dick, and of course Tyrone, all from their pages on our website, whamradio.com. Keep it locked on Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM in southeastern Michigan, and whamradio.com anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. Actually, I wrote a book on it. DEI in 3D. So basically, helping you. 3D obviously is in-depth view, right? So this takes a non-political, non-ideological look at what DEI is, where it comes from, why it's here, all of that, and it helps give you perspective on what DEI is. So that's the book I wrote.
Yeah, that's great.
On Amazon, and I encourage anybody to read, because it basically fully exposes DEI for what it is. But you can read it, and you'll come to, if you're a logical thinker and a practical thinker, at the end of it, you'll understand that DEI is a communist plot to overtake corporate America.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to mention, it's just an extension of cultural Marxism. It's like we are the most diverse nation on this planet. E pluribus unum, from many one. You and I are equal, are supposed to be equal under the law. Equity is yet another cultural Marxist bullshit argument. Right. But we are supposed to be indeed equals under the law. And inclusion. We are the most inclusive nation on the planet. We are indeed a nation of legal immigrants from many one, again, from all over the planet, the most diverse and inclusive on the nation. And I talk about Tom McDonald. He's a white Canadian rapper living in the U.S. now, but he wears his he's blonde, white guy, blue eyes. He wears his blonde hair and dreadlocks. And he mentions in a song, no, this ain't cultural appropriation. I'm paying homage. It's a problem when he does it. But if Beyonce, when she dyes her hair blonde, she's brave. That's not white appropriation. That's brave of her. Speak to that nonsense.
Well, basically, they're trying to own and control all of the arguments around race. Now, we have to understand that race is a social construct. It literally, we've only had that distinction for about 250, 260 years. So I don't know if you want me to go into the background of how we got here, but fundamentally, there was a guy by the name of Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. In late 1770s, who just did race classifications, but they were based upon the major continents that had population. So he did 5 people groups. He said, okay, Mongolians are the sort of East Asian, Native Americans would be sort of, what we call America now. Africa was called the Ethiopian race. And then Europeans were called Caucasian. So there were five basic classifications. Had nothing to do with skin color, had nothing to do with ethnicity. It was basically geography. Okay. So he said, look, these are five basic classifications. Then after him, a man who had the exact same pedigree as Johann Friedrich Bloom. Oh, the other thing that Blumenbach says, look, I've done the cranial evaluations of all of these ethnicities. He says, blacks have no intellectual or cognitive deficiencies compared to any other ethnicity in these race classifications. So fast forward 1835 or so, we get Charles Darwin. Darwin is the one who literally exposes race as a skin color thing, and ushers in white supremacy and racism. Now, I know some of your listeners may say, "Well, come on, no, there is no white supremacy." There is. Let me explain why and how. Okay, so Darwin said, "Look, we whites, we are superior. We're the cat's meow. We're the first to have fully evolved. Every other ethnicity after us is, sort of a duplication of a lesser scale." He says, but if you look at the Africans, you look at the blacks, he says they're still subhuman. Okay, so just take that in context.
Which allowed for the slave argument. They're not human, which they try to use about the baby in the womb. What is it, a fish? It only becomes a human when it's birthed? Come on. Yeah. Go on, sorry.
So let me expound on this a little bit. So if you listen to what he said, and all of this is in The Descent of Man, his second book. He says, we whites are supreme, and especially blacks. They're subhuman. They're tantamount to apes, gorillas, and savages. This is in his book, okay? So that is the inculcation of white supremacy. For the first time in history, we had a major renowned scientist making these audacious claims, right? So that follows through even to this day with diversity, equity, inclusion. And I'll get to that in a second. Then he says, because they're subhuman and apes, gorillas, and savages, obviously they can't have the same jobs that we whites can have. So he set it up to where blacks were innately inferior and unequal, which is what we call today racism. He did it based on skin color. So white supremacy as a distinction and racism, and I know a lot of conservatives and a lot of people of faith don't want to hear that, they did exist. And dare I say, they still do exist.
Oh, no doubt some still do. Absolutely.
Yeah, some still do. So, and especially those, and this is going to probably blow some people away, especially those that advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion. Because the argument is this. We know that blacks are innately incapable of competing. So therefore, we need to bend the excellence scale downward so we can have more blacks graduate and advance. That is a Darwinist argument of innate inferiority. So that is a white supremacist notion. All right. Even if it's adopted by a black person, doesn't matter. I'm talking about the notion. It's white supremacist in a sense, saying, look, whites, we know whites and Asians, they can compete in anything. Oh, but blacks and Hispanics, poor. Oh. So they have a what I call a savior complex, right? They want to say, oh no, we're with you 100%. We know you blacks are, you really can't compete. So we want to curve the scale downward, and we want to help you to advance, at our levels. So it's really a savior complex. It's cynical though. It's a cynical savior complex that they're using DEI for. It makes them feel good, right? And they can fully embrace their Darwinist notions without being called on it, because blacks are advancing. They're being placed in these positions without core competencies, skills, meritocracy, and all the things that make a difference. And so blacks aren't complaining. And so they get a chance to exercise their full white racism by being cynically sanctimonious and a savior to blacks.
Yeah, under the guise of helping. And Candace Owens it says it all the time. I saw her at a 11th congressional district meeting, got her to autograph a shirt for me. There are none more racist in her mind than a white leftist, a white liberal. Indeed, as you're saying, oh, poor you, you can't get by without me. Exactly. Right. And I have a whole problem, and you laid it out perfectly, the Darwinistic idiocy of this, because we are really one race, the human race. There are subcultures as originally defined. Yeah, the different continents in whatever respects are their own kind of evolved subculture, a subclass, but not a different race. So the term racist and racism in and of itself is a moronic term, and I hate using it because it's the leftist warping of language. And for those looking on behind the scenes, BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, and YouTube video behind the scenes, you can see Kevin holding up another book. Go ahead and tell us about that, Kevin.
This is Woked Up. And basically what I do in this book, I take all of the constructs about racism and I connect them to wokeism, because wokeism is, by definition, now this is not me trying to, well, I just want to get a talking point. No, by definition, if you identify as being woke, you are a racist and a supremacist. By definition, that's not me being mean and trying to cast aspersions and do ad hominem. It's defined. So this book will take you through and connect all the dots for you. It's called Woked Up, and you can get it on Amazon. And of course, I'm the author, Woked Up, Kevin McGary. But the subtitle is Finally Putting an Axe to the Taproot of White Supremacy and Racism in America. So basically, I thoroughly identify, all of the aspects and attributes that led us to this point. Everything's footnoted, private letters with Darwin, with Marx, with Engels, all of this. So it's all connected. And so you'll get a healthy dose of reality about wokeism, where it comes from. And
yeah. Hold up the other book you held up first again, which was DEI in 3D. Again, so for those looking behind the scenes on video, you could see the cover. And which is not to say also Blacks can't be culturalist, because again, not to use racist, I hate that term, to be culturalist. You've got Louis Farrakhan, who is a segregationist and separatist in himself. He demands a Black-only part of America be set aside for only Blacks. That's a Black separatist, supremacist, culturalist. You agree?
Yeah. So here's the thing about Darwin, when he does his race classifications, when he separates ethnicities into factions, anybody can be a cultural Darwinist, especially through cultural Marxism. Marx was a protege of Darwin. So if you don't see the connection there, Darwin, basically, Marx imbibed all of Darwin's philosophies and turned it into his economic philosophies and his theories, and that was how there was a protege mentor or mentee connection there. And so so if you're a Marxist, you're by definition a racist. Sorry, truth. I'm just telling you what it is.
Yeah, I've got an article on beforexnews.com. I also write for thelibertybeacon.com. Normally, ChristiTutionalist Politics is in conjunction a Saturday monologue show with a thelibertybeacon.com piece. But I've got a piece on Before It's News. Some don't want history taught, because, of course, then we might learn from it. And what you're laying out here is indeed going to be news to even those in this audience, which is generally well informed. But again, these connections, this part of history isn't taught. And I talk about the Bradford colony over and over about Marxist economics, communism having failed on our continent, the Mayflower Commie Compact. They almost all starved until Bradford instituted private property in, individual, not collective rights. Because again, each were supposed to share in the work equally and got equal shares of housing and food in return. But of course, Atlas Shrugged, human nature, as Christ even says, the poor will always be among you. That's not an economic statement. That's a human nature statement. And more people get lazy if they're going to get equity, that damn term, right? And sooner or later, there's too many in the cart to be pulled by those trying to pull it. So communism failed on our continent long before Marx. But again, unfortunately, our schools, no one knows that history, let alone the history you've spelled out today.
Yeah, I mean, communism always fails because Karl Marx was an abject failure. Everything he touched turned to crap. No wonder why we have these abject failures in the White House right now, and they're doing all this Marxist stuff, and everything they touch, everything they attempt to do turns to crap. Kamala is a diehard commie, okay? So everything that she touches, if she gets somehow an opportunity to be in the White House, and it may come sooner rather than later, Biden, steps aside and just lets her take that title right now, everything she touches turns to crap. So, and it's just the way the ideology works, because Karl Marx didn't have a job. He didn't hold the job in his entire life. I mean, he had these little side hustles and things that he did, but nothing substantive that was actually providing for his family. So he was a mooch off his parents. Literally, they supported him his entire life, him and his 7 kids. All right. So and then he was if there was such a thing as pioneering sex slavery, that would be Karl Marx in the modern day. He's a modern day pioneer of sex slavery, because he literally had a homekeeper that was supposed to just clean his home and all that, help him keep the place clean, who was his housekeeper, but he took her on as a paramour, and he had illicit, adulterous sex with her, throughout the 10 years that she served him, and he begat a child with her. Now, so you have a loathsome guy who never had a job, who mooches off his parents, and is a serial adulterer. And he never paid her, even though she was officially his housekeeper. He didn't pay her a plug nickel the entire decade or so that she worked, slaved for him and his family. So that's the ideology of a person like that, is what we want to follow? Excuse me?
He's the quintessential leftist of today, especially a leftist leader, like you said, a mooch. Like the leftist leaders never really working a real job. They want the government check over and over and fail their way up the ladder. And one of the hashtags I have for Kamala is Kamela, Kamele, because indeed it will be an extinction level event if she gets elected. If you think Bidenomics are bad, wait till Communomics is instituted by Harris. And AWOLs, oh my God, he's probably even more Marxist than she is. It's having honeymooned in China. I mean, he's a Maoist. Died in the war.
And they're both bought and paid for by the CCP. So we thought Biden was bad with CCP. We got Waltz and Harris. They're fully paid for. So here's the precipice that we're on. If she gets in office, and I don't think that people will vote to put her in office, but you know how they do the backdoor shenanigans.
Yeah.
If she gets in office, we are going to have our financial crisis and be put under this digital currency in a very short order. All the banks are ready. They've already tested it. Joe Biden, in his executive order 14067 a year and a half ago, made the mandate that we're going to have central bank digital currency. And so the banks came up the end of last year and said, okay, we're ready. We've tested it. The platforms are ready. And he says, okay, just stand by. The next financial crisis, we're going to implement this.
Yep.
So this is happening under, if Kamala were to get in office, we will go through that transition, which means we'll fall under the global order. The World Economic Forum, the Great Reset will automatically be under that order. And then folks like us, we won't be able to buy, sell, trade, do anything. It'll be throttled.
Literal mark of the beast through the digital currency. Yeah. They want the digital currency. I say all the time, people who love Bitcoin, you're helping the New World Order create the digital society, the cashless society. You're helping usher it in. They think, oh, it's decentral. No, government always co-opts and takes over things. And yeah, they will know everything you do, every transaction, be able to tax every single transaction. I like to keep my shows around 30 minutes to make sure people, it's not too long so people don't decide to not tune in and listen. So let's wrap it up. How did you and Neil Mammon come together? Because I know he's part of the organization.
Good question. Yeah, it was actually Neil's wife, Anna, who said, look, you and Kevin should do something as an alternative to BLM. And then Neil came to me and we talked about it and we said, yeah, we should, because it's just too much, crazy out there right now. So that's how we got started. But I've known Neil for over a decade. I have a large house here in the Bay Area and I do fundraisers and have had fundraisers. And he came to one of my fundraisers many, many years ago. I think it was either a Rand Paul fundraiser or maybe a Tim Scott. Could have been Alan West. I don't know. Multiple people have come through here, and we've been fast friends ever since. And so we've been working together with every Black Life Matters for the past 4 years, and we're excited to go forward and be that standard bearer of truth and righteousness and faith for all people, but especially we want to get Black folks to have an alternative way of viewing things, and that's why. Yeah. It's important that we're here. Our website is everyblm.com. Please go to the website, everyblm.com.
And that will, of course, be in the show notes. I was hoping to have you and Neil on together on the same show. We weren't able to get that to work. I will be talking to Neil another time, and of course, I'll ask him about you. So okay. I knew Neil, or I don't know him IRL, but I came across Neil through his Jesus is Involved in Politics, Why Aren't You book. Fantastic book. So I will be talking to him, of course, about that book when we talk. And I introduced him, Ed Bondarenka of Your American Heritage at Wham, to Neil, yep. And he's been on Wham Radio a couple times. So yep. Thank you, Kevin. Again, not a McMeal from McDonald's, McGary. It's Mick, McGary, not McGary, McGary. Thank you so much for coming on ChristiTutionalist Politics. Greatly appreciate you stopping by.
We appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strike, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, no fancy high production intro or insert, at least yet, just straight to key discussion point. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.